GM Growth Fam, time for another episode. And if you spend 5 minutes on tech Twitter right now, you would think that OpenClaw is going to buy, sell, manage every single aspect of your professional and personal life. You would think product marketers, product managers, people who build products are going to be extinct by next Tuesday. Today, I hosted who I like to call the godmother of product discovery, Teresa Torres herself, and who's, of course, the best-selling author of Continuous Discovery Habits. And honestly, in this episode, I didn't want her to break down her brilliant frameworks or take lessons from her book into this episode. I wanted to throw AI's futuristic scenarios that are apparently going to be true by next week at her. And honestly, she systematically dismantled them. We got into the practical realities of human behavior and why, from her pragmatic and practical perspective, realities she faces every day, things maybe are not going to change as much. Tech Twitter and the media would have you believe. We got into an absolute goldmine of her processing notes framework, which has, by her own admission, turned her into an AI engineer for herself. Enjoy this episode, and I'll see you very soon. Welcome to the show, Teresa. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Teresa is the author of Continuous Discovery, is one of the leading voices when it comes to product marketing, just thinking about product in general. To kick it off, what I really want to understand, every product team talks about or thinks about talking to users. What is like an invisible trap, something that people think they're doing right, but they really aren't, that you've continuously come across?
Yeah, the big one is we just don't know how to engage with customers in a way that's going to get us reliable feedback. So a lot of people reach out to their customers and they say, what do you think of our idea? What do you think of this feature? They ask, like, what are your pain points with our product? These are all really unreliable questions. What I mean by unreliable is their answer doesn't really reflect reality. And there's a lot of reasons for this. All humans have what are called cognitive biases. This comes from the realm of like behavioral economics. But it's this idea that our brains take shortcuts. And this is by design. It actually helps keep us alive, right? Our brain's job is to keep our heart beating and our lungs breathing. And all this mental activity that we seem to associate with who we are is really kind of a side effect. And so if we want to learn from our customers, especially in a product realm, but what's most valuable is learning what do they actually do? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? What do they do? And so instead of asking like, hey, what do you think of my idea? Which is just setting yourself up, one, for confirmation bias. You're only going to hear the things that says your idea is amazing, and you're going to miss all the feedback that suggests maybe your idea is going to miss the mark. But also, people want to be nice. So it's not that they're lying to you, they're just not maybe sharing the whole truth. And then even when neither of those things are at play, we still have this problem in that, like, as humans, we're not very good at remembering what we do in the general sense. So for example, if I ask you something like, tell me about your diet, you're probably going to give me an aspirational response. You're going to tell me how you hope you eat, not how you actually eat. And even if you're not trying to give me the aspirational response, you might tell me what you think you do most of the time. But the problem is what we think we do most of the time is not what we do most of the time, because our brain forgets all the exceptions. And exceptions are like a everyday part of life, right? You're running late to something, so you grab a fast meal. You have last minute guests, and so you go out to eat 3 days in a row instead of cooking at home. These are things that happen all the time, right? Somebody brings donuts to work. You never would buy donuts yourself, but there's a donut right there. You might as well have one. And your brain doesn't remember these things when you ask people general questions. And so the biggest mistake teams make, I think now we're in an era where most teams know they should be talking to customers. Not everybody does it still, but at least somewhere they have it in their head. This is part of the job, but we still have a long way to go on learning technique.
And I also think, like you've said this before as well, there is asking questions and then there's asking the right questions, and goes exactly back to that point. Amazing. And talk to me about when a B2B buyer or somebody who's trying to audit their workflows and trying to organically understand where a user is feeling their pain point. But now, especially on customer service, sales, these seem to be sort of the first pillars a lot of businesses are trying to target and automate with AI. So the core tenet of a business truly understanding implicitly what the pain point of the user is, to my mind at least, goes away. Talk to me about when you're talking to businesses like that are both in terms of ingestion of the feedback and then processing of the feedback, or thinking, hey, AI can handle this. How are you talking to them? Are you cautioning them against it? Are you telling them, hey, you should do more of this? Or if there's a middle ground, yeah, I'd love to know that.
I think there's parts of sales and customer support that are really a good fit for AI. For anybody who has ever done customer support, you get the same question thousands of times. I'm not really sure any human should spend their life answering the same question over and over and over again. So to me, that's like a really great use case for customer support. And one of the things we're learning is when companies adopt customer support like AI, they're not really, as some of these companies that are making headlines are letting go of all their customer support people. But I think the good people are recognizing if AI can answer the same question that gets asked 4,000 times, maybe our customer support people can now dive deeper with our customers and really get to like the meatier, harder questions. So I think when this is done well, it actually can help us become more customer centric. And I think the same is true in sales. So there's sort of two parts to a sales process. The first part is this sort of farming. It's very administrative. It's trying to identify who are qualified leads. It's trying to find your ideal customers. It's really this like match, qualifying, understanding like, can our product actually help you? And I think for good sales teams, they've turned that process into a funnel. They know exactly what qualifying questions to ask. They know exactly who their target customer is. They know how to very quickly evaluate, is this worth for both parties involved, right? Like, I don't want to be sold a product that isn't a good fit for me. So I think this also benefits the customer when it's done well. And then if we're using AI to better find that match, and then that frees up our sales teams to go deeper with our prospects and really get into the details, it actually asks way more of our sales teams. I'm one of those people that like when I evaluate software, I really evaluate software. Like I want to know, does the API do these 17 things that I need it to do to fit my use case? And it's rare that a salesperson can answer that because most of their day is spent answering the superficial questions that AI could probably answer. And so I hope what this means is that sales, the people in sales actually get better. They have time to develop product expertise. They have time to develop a much richer understanding of who their prospects are. So I don't think the premise is right. Like, I don't think it makes us less customer centric. I think there's a huge potential to help us be more customer centric.
Taking it to the other side, though, I just heard a case study of a fairly large, hundreds of thousands of B2B software contract that was supposed to be signed. And essentially, what ended up happening within the deal was the client who was supposed to buy the software essentially went to ChatGPT and asked, like, hey, am I getting a fair deal? Or, is this really going to solve my problem? Because I have like XYZ concerns. And just based on the function of the LLM, the LLM ended up agreeing to the concerns that the buyer had. And going back to that sort of confirmation bias point, and the deal did not happen. So there are like edge cases that end up happening because of AI being a part of either the workflow or the decision flow. When those kinds of edge cases appear, and for them to appear, AI in some way, shape, or form needs to flag that, or because there are like thousands of queries, and for somebody to understand and interpret that. Really, the human always stays in the loop but doesn't get out of it. When those kinds of edge cases are coming out, where really it's not the AI's fault, it's not the human's fault, there's just a fringe case that shows up. How does a company manage that?
This is an edge case. I think this is becoming the norm. I think in a lot of sales processes, there's a imbalance in information. The company has more information. There's actually an imbalance in both directions. So the company knows more about the product, the prospect's trying to figure it out. The prospect knows more about their needs, and if the sales team is any good, they're trying to learn more about those needs. I think in the prospect's point of view, AI is helping us learn more about a company's product than their sales team ever did. And I actually think that's a good thing. I think it's going to make us better educated consumers. We're going to make better decisions. Now, it's going to be hard on companies if their product isn't genuinely better or isn't a better fit for their target customer. They're going to lose sales over this. But I think this is a good thing. I think that companies should be focused on an ideal customer. I think they should be very closely matching their needs. And if that's true, then you should stand up to the scrutiny of your consumer having more information. So like if we're afraid that a more educated consumer won't buy our product, that's a problem with us. That's not a problem with the consumer or with AI.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to go back to a little bit on the acquisition perspective is that right now, especially product marketers that I'm talking to, there's almost like this fear of the fact that, hey, if we somehow end up in a future where my AI agent, or I have a Jarvis of my own, basically, nobody's actually using my product, it's going to be an AI agent that does that. From a builder perspective, how do you feel like that is changing at the moment? Do you feel like the fear that nobody's really going to use products, it's all going to be AI agents is fair? Or do you feel like that it's over exaggerated?
Would you let an AI plan your next vacation with no input from you?
No, definitely not.
Would you let it manage your monthly budget?
Like manage my bank account or just like manage? Yeah, probably not.
Would you let it write a blog post for you just on its own, publish it?
Maybe. I'm not sure, to
Okay,
be
here's where
honest.
I'm going with this. There's very little today we let agents do without a human in the loop. Is that because AI is not very good? I think AI is excellent right now. I think even if AI didn't get any better, it's still going to radically change the world. But I'm not willing to give up my responsibility of providing oversight and editorial and right? Like maybe there's some truth to this idea of like an agent is going to do a lot of research for you. Take the vacation example. I already use agents to do a lot of research for me. I still go look at the hotel website because I want to see pictures, right? I'm not letting AI touch my money, period. Like, there's lots of areas where AI can do a lot to help, but I don't think it's going to go away that humans are not going to be involved. So I think this, like, it's just going to be agents talking to agents is a trope that's way too extreme. And like, maybe I'll look back on that and regret saying that, but I don't think so. I think that for people that use this technology in depth, it's really clear the human still plays a role. And I'm not sure that's going to change anytime soon. I do think that AI will do more and more over time, but I think the human will still play a role.
So let's say, for example, when it comes to the way a company tends to position themselves or tries to target a specific ICP from something as simple as building their website. If AI is doing a lot of the research and filtering, do you feel like the look and feel and the structure of what we used to follow, like, okay, this is a landing page and we need to make it easily navigatable, we need to make it visually very appealing so that a human can get, really excited by it, now goes to, okay, make it like bare bones, like HTML page, because it's only an AI agent that's going to be reading that. What do you think
I
about
think it's always going to be both. I think we do have to acknowledge that there will be agents crawling your website and trying to understand it. But I think for the vast majority of things, so will humans.
So do you feel like product discovery changes quite a bit because of that? Or do you feel like that also won't?
Product discovery changes because agents might use our websites. I think it's the same we see with SEO. Agents have used our websites since 1997, probably before, because even Alta Vista was crawling the web. I don't think I know like this is a sexy new technology and everyone wants to talk about everything that's changing. I actually think more is the same than is changing. I think we get a whole bunch of new capabilities that I think are super fun. AI can help us do our work in ways that has never been possible before. And I think that's amazing. Fundamentally, what is the point of an agent if not to create value for a human? As long as there's a human in the loop, humans still matter, right? And okay, let's take this to the extreme. We end up in the Wall-E world where all agents do all work and humans do nothing. Okay, that doesn't really work. Like, you don't have an economy where people do nothing. And I don't even mean just work-wise. Like, maybe we get to the point where we decide everybody gets universal basic income and we distribute wealth and people can just be artists. Like, humans are not going to there's no world in which humans will do nothing. Like, that is not, I'm pretty confident in saying that is not a possible future. We're not going to sit around and twiddle our thumbs. Like, humans are way too creative and innovative and have a desire to be productive. Like, we will do something. And I think that like these visions of no human in the loop ever for anything, it's just agents all the way down, is baloney. And that is a prediction I will make. I don't think that we're going to ever be in a world where humans don't interact with things.
Do you feel like, has anything fundamentally changed with what you were talking about, let's say in 2015, 16, to where we are today? Do you feel like anything is fundamentally changing, or do you feel like things are the same? Just in terms of how we look at product as a function, really.
Yeah, I can see a few big changes. So the biggest one is I see we're seeing a blurring of roles. I think that some people are throwing around this term of product builder. So instead of a product manager, a designer, a software engineer, we're just all product builders. I really like this. I think this is good for the industry. I think this is good for humans. I think probably in 2012 or 2013, I wrote an article about collaboration and about how when you're a kid and you're building like a tree fort in your yard, you don't have one kid say, I'm the expert hammer nailer. I'm the only one that gets to hammer nails in. People just do stuff, right? And if it turns out someone's a little bit stronger, maybe they carry the wood. And if it turns out somebody's a little bit more nimble, they climb the tree, right? Like we just figure it out. And I actually think this is how humans were like socially developed to collaborate. I think this is what makes humans very distinct from other primates do this too, but I think it's what makes us very distinct from a lot of other mammals. I think this is like core to who we are as humans. And I think AI making it easier for us to work across disciplines is good. I think we're going to get better products for it. I think we're going to get a lot more creativity. I think we're going to see a lot more solopreneurship. I think we're going to see a lot more small businesses. I think all of this is going to be a hugely positive trend. Hopefully, it means bigger companies will experiment more. They can spin up a 2-person team to launch a new product and see what happens. So hopefully, we'll see more innovation in big companies. I'm less confident about that because it's going to take a long time for big company leaders to let go of command and control. But I don't even think we need to see that because I think we'll see it outside of big companies. I think we're already seeing this today where people are leaving their jobs and they're not looking for a next job. They're starting their own company. And that's been easier than ever. You can do way more with a small number of people. I think venture capital will probably always be around, just like book publishing will always be around. Some people want the credibility signal. Some people think that large amounts of money is required. But I think more and more people are going to recognize they can bootstrap, they can create a life-changing business for themselves. I think all of this is really empowering. Like I fundamentally believe all humans are creators. And I think this is going to allow way more people to tap into their creativity.
Awesome. Love that. What do you call your own personal tool that you built, task management? There was a name, right? That you gave it to?
No, it's just my task manager.
Okay. Task manager. Okay. So your personal task manager, you figured out a way to synthesize data, manage it, and process it much better than a lot of other people. Talk to me about when companies are trying to do this at scale. Maybe they're running multiple research surveys, interviews, so on and so forth, and they're using AI to synthesize a lot of that data. How can companies avoid something like context rot or essentially hallucinations that they're dealing with from a practical standpoint?
Yeah, there's a lot behind this question. And I think the first thing is that if you just give AI a bunch of data and you say synthesize this, you're going to get very generic synthesis. And this is actually one of the biggest weaknesses I see of a lot of these research tools. They don't have a point of view. And I mean this from like, I'm not going to pick on Dovetail because I think they're a good research tool, but like Dovetail is trying to be the research repository for all types of teams. And so if you just dump a bunch of stuff into a research repository and you say like, what are the insights that come out? We're not really guiding the LLM. We're not really telling it what we're looking for. What's our goal? Now I know Dovetail does better than that. So I'm literally not picking on Dovetail. I'm just using them as an example of these types of products. I'll put Notebook LM in the same exact category. I actually love Notebook LM. I'm using it now to generate all the infographics on my blog posts. It's super fun. I'm very impressed. What I will never do is upload all my interview transcripts to Notebook LM and say, summarize what I'm learning. Because I need to guide the LLM. I need to tell it, like for a product team that's doing continuous interviewing and looking for opportunities, that type of interview synthesis is very different from, say, a user researcher whose goal is to understand sentiment about an industry or sentiment about a product or sentiment about a workflow and goal, right? Like different research purposes need different kinds of synthesis. And so I think it's really important that you either design your own synthesis process to match your goal, or you pick a tool that's aligned with your goal. So I'll give a couple of examples of this. I do a lot of synthesis activities across my work. I'll use a coding one as an example. I do a lot of coding with Claude. I'm developing a lot of AI services. So I'm basically a full-time AI engineer at this point. And after every coding session, I have Claude document using a tool called process notes that I created, where it just documents, here's what we did in this session. Here's the key decisions that came up. Here's what we tried that were dead ends. right? And so it's just a summary. It's like a reflection. It's like a retro on the session. And that gets added to a process notes document. And literally every project I have has a process notes document. So that's one level of synthesis. Then I have a weekly process where Claude reviews all of the week's entries across all of my process notes documents and starts to look for patterns. Where do we get stuck in decision making? What kinds of dead ends come up over and over again? How can we work better together? And Claude puts together a report for me where it recommends things we could add to the context to help Claude do a better job. It recommends things I can do to get more value out of Claude. And so that's like a retro on retros, right? I didn't just say, go look at all of our conversations and figure out how we can do better. First, I said, here's how we synthesize a single conversation. And I came up with a process for that. And then I said, here's how we synthesize across conversations. And I came up with a process for that. Well, this is directly analogous to interviewing. I'm not going to just dump all my interview transcripts into a folder. First, I'm going to come up with a process for how do I synthesize what I learned from a single interview. For people who've read my book, that's an interview snapshot. Then I'm going to synthesize what I've learned across my interviews. That's an opportunity solution tree. And so I'm actually building AI services for this. I'm now building AI interview snapshot generation and AI generated opportunity solution trees from your real customer transcripts. This isn't fake data. We're starting with real customer conversations and generating opportunity solution trees. And it follows this exact same pattern, layers of synthesis, where the LLM is told, here's the goal, here's what we're trying to learn, here's what we're doing in this step. And then we're doing another layer of synthesis on top of that.
Wow. I think that also, I mean, you're doing this for your own task manager, but I also feel like that just becomes a really cool process that, especially startups maybe who are trying to do this at scale, maybe they have too much input and not enough time to manage the synthesis of that data. Maybe that's a process that they can also build on or just use
Yeah,
Teresa's solution.
I have a podcast called Just Now Possible where I interview product teams about the AI products that they're building. And to use AI well, this is a theme that has come up over and over and over again. In almost every AI feature or product, they're doing a lot of this behind the scenes. So they're capturing raw data, and then they're doing different levels of synthesis to turn that data into something interesting. And so I think this is a core skill that not just for personal workflows, but also for the products that we build. And the stuff I talked about with interview snapshots and opportunity solution trees, this isn't something just in my personal workflow. I have a partnership with a company called Vistally. They build opportunity solution tree software. We're actually integrating this AI synthesis into their tool. So like the same skills that I'm using for my personal work are also allowing me to build production quality AI services that are ending up in real products.
Since you mentioned AI products themselves, I was curious to know what are companies that are coming to you thinking about, especially AI native ones that are chat native. So they have a chat box and that's essentially the product. It's doing a certain function based on that. When it comes to things like engagement, things like activity, the sort of traditional PLG metrics, especially like AI native companies are trying to track or trying to understand. What are the kind of problems that they're facing, and maybe what are the kind of solutions you're proposing?
Yeah, I think this is really similar to regular products. The two key differences is one, in a regular product, the UX constrains what you can do. So it guides you towards the right path. With a chat box, people can literally type in anything. That's a benefit and a harm. So the harm is it's a blank page problem. You have to help guide them. And you can see like even on Claude, even on ChatGPT, they have examples of what you can do right below the chat box to help guide people, like, what can I do with this thing? So that's the first thing, is you got to help overcome that blank page problem. The second thing is you have to be prepared for any type of input. And so almost every single one of these products, the very first thing they're doing is they're evaluating the prompt. Is this appropriate for us to respond to? And then if it's not, they're letting the user know. And then they're using that as an opportunity to guide them towards what they should be using the product for. Then the second thing that's unique about these types of products is that you're not always going to get the same response for the same input. So the non-deterministic aspect of it. Some people respond to this and they think, well, you just can't control quality, then you don't know what you're going to get. But that's not true. We have had machine learning algorithms in our products for decades now. We've learned methods for how to make sure we're getting quality from them. And those exact same methods are being applied to AI products, where we're doing a wide variety of evals and some people think of evals as just data sets, but evals aren't just data sets. We have data sets, we have code assertions, we have LLM as judges, we have human feedback, like human in the loop feedback as evals. And I think this is a new skill that product teams have to learn if they're building AI products. If they're not evaluating the quality, then we have no idea what our user experience is. And then I think to the core of your question of like these product-led growth metrics, if we're looking at things like acquisition and engagement and activation, engagement, retention, I think just like we don't have those metrics as generic metrics, like every company has to figure out what's the right thing to engage around, what's the activation metric for us. Like nobody measures activation. They measure an activity that turns out to activate their user. And the work is to identify that activity. The same is true with a chat box, right? Like what value are you delivering to the customer? What's the fastest way to get them to that value? What's the conversation or the answer that is that activation moment? I don't think those frameworks change. I think the experience around them might change and how we evaluate quality might change, but I think guiding metrics are the same.
What do you think about in a world where we can get a bunch of different evaluations done at the same time? Maybe AI accelerates the amount of insight that I could have drawn from my data that I was not able to do before. Creates a problem of sort of like insight debt, where we have too much insight now. We're trying to figure out what is the most actionable, what is high priority, what is low priority. Because especially in a non-deterministic product, that problem is exacerbated to quite an extent. When a company's facing that insight debt or trying to figure out what's the right direction to go to, how do you talk to them? What are you telling them? How are they solving the problem?
I actually don't think the volume has changed. I actually think what has changed is we can work with a higher volume. So I think every company has always had, most companies have some type of behavioral analytics, even if it's just Google Analytics. Every company has a support team where they're getting overwhelmed with support tickets. Every B2B company has a sales team. Even some consumer companies have sales teams where they're having customer conversations all day, every day. Like an organization is set up to interface with the market, and every single one of those touch points is a data point. I think in the past, we didn't do anything with most of those data points. And over the last, say 5 to 20 years, depending on which of those data points we're talking about, we're getting a lot better. So tools like we started with just crude page view counts in Google Analytics, and now we have dozens of way more sophisticated analytics companies to help us understand what's happening on our website, to the point that we can even view a session, see where everybody's clicking and what they're doing. Sales conversations, we now, Salesforce was sort of the first step into let's capture everything. But we also have gong calls where we can actually do synthesis on gong calls. That's getting expanded even to team calls with tools like Granola, where literally every conversation in the organization is getting recorded and turned into a transcript. With AI responding to support tickets, we're actually able to handle a much higher volume of support tickets, which is definitely increasing what might be coming in, but it's also getting us much better analytics about where the pain points might be. And I think when you solve all that base level common questions, it frees your customer up to actually engage more with the product. And that's where you start to get that higher value support tickets, where you're starting to get clues as to where your product's mental model doesn't match your customer's mental model. And then the fact that AI can synthesize large volumes of data, again, if done well, is actually allowing us to tap into these resources and not just have them be frustratingly dormant.
But do you not feel like their nature of being non-deterministic messes with their ability to accurately understand first, what to track, what's a good engagement? So for example, in a chat interface, and I'm using, let's say video editing, or I think that's a bad example, but you get my point. So I'm using a chat interface and I'm trying to get to my desired outcome. Now, within that process, for a company to get that particular person to that deterministic outcome or that value that they're trying to receive, a user might go through multiple different routes or go back and forth with the interface multiple times, which was maybe not the case before because it was click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I get to the outcome that I want to get to.
let me pause you for a second. Have you ever built a product where your customer always took the happy path?
No, definitely
Right?
not.
Like, this isn't different with non-deterministic products because humans are non-deterministic, right? Nobody comes to your website and just goes, click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 value creation. Usually they click 400 things to get to that 5th point of value creation, right? So I think what's behind your question is like, how are you evaluating a conversation? Let's use a really simple example. Let's say that I'm built a tool that helps me figure out what to eat for dinner. So I go to my chatbot and I say, what should I eat for dinner? And it gives me some suggestions. How am I evaluating whether that's successful? Did I find something to eat for dinner? How do I know that? Well, I can evaluate that in a lot of different ways. First of all, at the end of the conversation, I can ask the customer, did you find something to eat for dinner? Yes or no? I can look at the sentiment across the conversation. Is the customer getting frustrated? Is the AI remembering all the details that the customer entered in? Is it suggesting things that breaks some of the requirements? Like, all of this is visible through the conversation, just like everything that you do on a website is visible. We can see all the things that you click and see, did you take the happy path or did you take 40 steps to do a 5-step process? We can do the exact same thing with LLM products. Did you get a good suggestion or did it take 17 iterations for you to get to a good suggestion? Did you fail and just give up and we didn't actually help you? Like, all of that is measurable with AI products. That's what evals are for. That's what evals measure.
If, like you said, I'll leave the conversation in the middle, maybe I actually got the value that I needed. So, for example, I'm the steak or dinner example. It gave me a few suggestions. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't think about that. And I go and I make myself what I wanted to make. I eat it. And actually, the AI did its task well, but the user left the conversation. So, are we taking the path of, okay, we don't really know. Maybe we have to dig deeper and ask that question, but the user is not there. So, they're not answering that question and they may never answer that question. So,
What
how
if
do
I
we
go to
determine?
Amazon and do some product research and I find a book that I want to buy, but I don't buy it from Amazon? I go to the library and I get the book from my library. How do we know that that was a successful session?
The answer is like, it's not just deterministic within the product sense, as long as the path led to an outcome, whether it's on platform or off platform.
Product behavior, like customer behavior, has never been deterministic. The only difference with AI products is now you have 2 actors that are non-deterministic. But our measurements are the same. How we evaluate success are the same. If I'm Amazon and it looks like you didn't buy anything, that wasn't successful for me as a business, but it might be successful for you as a customer. How do I know? Well, the next time I can ask you an NPS question. Or I can send you an email and say, hey, you were looking at this book. Do you want to buy it? Or we could put in that email an option that says, I already bought it, right? Like, we've always been able to do this in products. And our meal planner, we could do the exact same thing. The next day, hey, what did you do with those suggestions? The next time you come back, did you like that? And especially with chat, we tend to continue our conversations. The next day when you need a new idea, what are you going to do? You're going to open that old conversation and say, give me another idea. That's a pretty good signal that it worked for you.
Yeah. I agree. In terms of like the shiny object syndrome. So let's say, for example, I did discovery and figured out I needed to build thing X. I did some more discovery and figured out it was actually X plus Y. Now I did some more discovery and I figured out I need X plus Y plus Z. I feel like, especially now, and why I'm asking that question is, especially with a lot of AI native startups, they're having that shiny object syndrome, and that might not be the best route from a business outcome perspective for them to take. When you talk to, and this is startups, definitely, when you talk to a team like that, I think some bit of it is emotional, but also like, how do you stop them from not doing something?
You don't, because they're a startup and they're going to make all the mistakes and learn the hard way. Here's the deal. I don't think that has changed either. Every company wants to build X, Y, and Z, and they rush to build X, Y, and Z, and they learn that X was wrong and Y and Z weren't needed. So the way we fix it is with continuous discovery and continuous delivery. We build X, we get feedback. We change our plan. We don't just blindly deliver Y. We learn from X and we realize we need X sub A and we build that instead, right? But this takes discipline. Again, going back to those cognitive biases, it's easy to have ideas. It's easy to believe our ideas are right. If we don't build in feedback loops, we're not learning, we're on the wrong path. I don't think AI changes any of this. I'm a huge fan of AI. I think it is dramatically going to change the world. And I think we're focused way too much on what's changing and not focusing on what's staying the same.
I could definitely agree with that point. Awesome. So, Teresa, thank you so much for doing this. This was really lovely. Thank you so much for taking out the time and making it over here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. See you in the next episode. GM and bye bye.